Okay, this is the first step installing a slate roof. Traditionally is to put a wood can strip. This strip down here is about 7/16. It's a light 1/2 inch by 1 inch. It's cut off of a rough sawn board, and he's screwing it in, and that's the first thing you have to do right there. Let me add that little can strip is even with the bottom edge of the sheeting.
Good.
The second thing you have to do is chalk the roof. So here we're chalking the first course, which is the starter course. The mark on the starter course is the length of the starter slate minus 1.5 inches. We're using a 10-inch starter slate, so the line is 8.5 inches from the bottom. That'll leave 1.5 inches hanging out. That's what you want on the drip edge, is 1.5 inches hanging out. On the gable end here, you want 1 inch sticking out. The second line will be the first course of slate. We're using 14-inch slates, so we have a 12.5-inch line that'll leave us 1.5 inches hanging out. After that, it'll be every 5.25 inches all the way up the roof, because we're putting a 3.5-inch headlap on this roof because we're staggering the slates a little bit, so we're giving a little extra headlap. Okay, it's handy if you run a string up the gable end with a 1-inch gap, just to mark your outside edge of the slate. Go ahead, Ryan, tie that on there so I can. So he's tying on the top. Just pound a nail in there, measure out 1 inch, and run your string up. And then when you're laying your slates out here, you'll have a guide to go by. Just makes it a little easier, a little quicker. Okay, here's the starter slate. It goes on the back side up. That's the front. You can see the bevel. The front goes down. It'll nail onto that line, and it'll line up with the string. And here we're using field slates, so it has the holes in the wrong place. We have to put another hole in here. And when you're laying your starter, you always have to lay the first course at the same time. Here's going to be the first slate. That way you don't end up with a nail hole in the gap here, or 2 slates lining up right on the edge. Okay, now we're putting the starter course on here. Here's the first course. You need to run the first course out with the starter to make sure you don't end up with a nail in the gap there, or there is a nail actually right there, but it'll be covered by the next slate, which will cover quite a bit. Yep. Starter slate upside down, that's the way it's supposed to be. We're using field slates here for starters. It's easier if you buy your starters already made, because then they have the nail holes punched on the right side. But you can see the starter, you can see the shim, you can see the first course, and then after that, on a regular chalk line, all the slates will go up. Okay, we're at the Natural Building Colloquium in Bath, New York, end of July 2008. These folks are trimming the slates into so that the face of the slate is rounded, so that we can install kind of a unique looking roof. That's what's going on here right now. Okay, you can see the shim under there that's nailed right to the top of the sheeting. In this case, this roof has 2-inch sheeting because the rafters are spaced too far apart for 1 inch. And then you can see the starter course, which is the upside down slate. Only slate on the roof to be installed upside down. And then the first course, which is square. And then all of these slates were square, but we rounded them off to get this look, this pattern. These are all 14-inch slates. We gave them a 5 1/4 inch exposure. The exposure is what you see from here to here. That gives us a 3 1/2 inch headlap. And then we staggered the slate slightly to try to give the slightly more irregular appearance to the roof. Once the shim is on the starter, the first course, then the slates are simply nailed onto chalk lines and finished with a saddle ridge. This is the saddle ridge here, and what's important about the saddle ridge is they should overlap each other by 50% minimum. So here we have a 14-inch slates, and these are 7-inch exposures, and over each pair of saddle ridge slates is a piece of flashing 9 inches long. That gives the flashing 2 inches of overlap, and that's what it looks like when it's finished, using random widths 14-inch slates, all rounded by hand to give a unique appearance. This is Ryan Jenkins. He was one of the presenters here, helping show how to install a roof like this. We had a lot of volunteers, and the volunteers cut the slates into the rounded shapes to give this look to the roof, which is a completely unique roof, a very appealing look that does require extra labor in rounding all of the slates.